Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and I'm here today to share a fun tutorial for you. It is my strawberry lemonade table mat or pillow, and it is a free pattern. When we found out that we were going to be on the cover of the Moda catalog, we were also told that if we wanted to, we could design a free pattern to go along for the shops to use when our fabric was available. And so I designed this free little PDF to make both of these projects, and they're actually both the same project finished in just slightly different ways. And so we're gonna just jump right into it, and I'll show you all the tips and tricks for making this really fun project, either one or both. Okay, so I'm going to start just by telling you a couple of things. When I first got the little option to design a free pattern, I decided to do this table mat, and I went ahead and I made it, and I was super happy with it. And then I started thinking this would really make a fun pillow. And additionally, I got the idea that I could also include a hexagon flower in the center. And so I'll just show you what I did. Was these 9 squares are actually not needed when you add the hexagon flower to the center. You will, instead of using these 9 squares, you will have a 6.5 by 6.5 inch square that you have appliqued the hexagon flower onto. And so it makes it super simple, because pillow or table mat, you could do the hexagon flower on a table mat too, but everything else is the same. So we do have a link for you that you can download the PDF, but if you want a cute little printed version, you can ask your favorite quilt shop. They should have them. I'm not sure if they'll have them now or if they will have them when Strawberry Lemonade is available in January, but you should be able to get these for very minimal cost from your local quilt shop. And I believe a lot of them will be doing little kits where they'll have the charm pack available for you and all the extra fabric and the pattern. So, okay, I'm just going to show you how I put mine together. And we'll talk about finishing and all that. I actually made my sample in Bountiful Blooms. And I'm just going to show you this up front. This is the hexagon flower that I'm going to use, and 6.5 inch by 6.5 inch background square. And I made the hexagon flower and hand stitched it. You might be able to see I did use blue thread to match the flower. I'm not sure if it'll show up. But we do have a video on how to make these units, how to put them together, and we also have a separate video on how to applique it to your background fabric. It's really a fast and fun project, and even if you've never done it before, I feel like you could learn it and do it very, very quickly. One thing though, when I made this one, I did use these, I made all of these petals from the same fabric. If you are just using a mini charm pack, you'll have to do what I did on my Strawberry Lemonade version. You'll have to make the flower using different prints, because you will need almost every single mini charm square from the pack. And so there just aren't enough of one print to make 6 different petals from that. So that's the one thing you'll have to do if you're using a mini charm pack. Okay, so you're going to start, you're going to use the mini charm pack, and you're going to take from that 39 squares if you're making the mat. So you're going to use 39 of these squares, and this is with no flower. And you're just going to lay them out in diagonal rows. There's a little diagram inside the pattern. And you're going to just kind of move the colors and prints around to where you get a nice look, how you like it. You're also going to need 20 squares, 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, that you set around all of the edges. And I'm just going to show you a really great trick. I love, and I've shared this on a video before, maybe 2 even, I love just keeping a charm pack of Bella Solids 9900-200, and it makes it so easy when I need small pieces of background fabric. I always use this color with our collections now, and so I was able to just pull out 5 charm squares, cut them in fourths, and then I had my 20 charms. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit of how you can sew these together in sections to make it easier for yourself. Okay, so I've sewn some of these together just to make it more simple to share with you, and some of them I haven't, but I really do want to share one of the final steps before you quilt it. So I am going to be taking a break in just a minute to go sew this together on the sewing machine. But this is what I would do. And remember, if you don't have this here, you're going to just have 9 more squares laid out. So, and I kind of have a lot of lights here because I used most of the prints while I was doing, but I'm just to kind of give you just a quick idea. Instead of that, you would have 9 more squares. And what you would do in that situation is I would just sew all of the rows together and all of the squares in each row together, and then sew the rows together. I laid it out this way because this makes it easier when you're doing the flower. So anyway, this is kind of what it would look like if you were doing this version of the project. But for adding the flower, it seemed to make it a little bit easier for me to do it this way. And so I sewed all of these together, and I sewed this unit and this unit together because then I'm going to sew them to my flower section. And then I will go ahead and sew these together, and it will look just like this. So just wanted to show you, this is what this side of the project will look like after it's sewn together. And before you sew the squares together, you can just move it around and get a good mix of colors for how you like it. So I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go sew these 2 sections to either side of my hexagon flower section, and then I'm going to sew the rest of it together, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you the trimming directions. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's all sewn together. You'll notice some of my white squares around the edges, they have the little pinked marks. That's because I did use the charm square and cut in fourth. And you can see just, I probably should have shown you before, when you're sewing the squares to the rows ahead of them, there will just be an overlap, and that's fine. That's how it's supposed to be. That happens at every intersection. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that when I added the hexagon flower to the 6.5 inch square, I folded the square diagonally. Let me show you. Okay, I'll show you how I lined up the hexagon flower just with a charm square. I folded it in half diagonally, the 6.5 inch by 6.5 inch square one way, and I just finger pressed it, and then I did the same thing the other way with a finger press, and then I used those lines. I'll just take another hexagon flower. This isn't as big as the square, but just to show you what I did, I lined up these lines with those diagonal press lines, the center of the hexagon with that diagonal, the center of this hexagon with that diagonal, and then this center seam. And so that's how I lined up my hexagon on the background square. Okay, so once you get it to this point, you're ready to trim. I'm going to show you how I do that. Use any kind of a long ruler, and you're going to want to leave 1/4 of an inch past the seam allowance. And my ruler, I have a longer one, but this one will work. I've got it to where my 1/4 inch is lined up with the diagonal on all of these intersections, because what I want is I don't want these points to get cut off any more than I have to. And this will leave me a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to cut, I'm going to go part way up and I'm going to slide my ruler. And then you're just going to have these little pieces. And you'll trim the next side in the same way, making sure that you're going to have 1/4 inch beyond those points for your seam allowance. And so then again, you can tell that this is where my seam will be, and that way hopefully those points will be okay. And then once again, when you get back to this third side, you can actually line the bottom of your ruler up. Make sure that it's square. That really helps to make sure. Okay, and then one more cut. Okay, now what I recommend doing is taking this over to the sewing machine at this point and just sewing 1/8 inch away from the edge all the way around, just to stay stitch it so this doesn't come apart while it's being quilted. Just a little, actually a technique that I learned from all those years of sewing clothing to do a stay stitch, but it really does help when you're working on a quilt project that has a lot of seams here. You know, we've just cut them all off, so even if you had backstitched, that backstitching would be gone. So go ahead and stay stitch around the edge, and then you're ready for quilting. I'll just show you a couple of options. With this one, I just had my quilter do an all over pattern, and you can see it pretty well on the back too. Just a fun little leaf design with little swirls. It turned out really cute. With this one, I actually had to do it myself. I didn't have anyone available to do the quilting, and so I just did straight line quilting, and I'm actually really happy with how it turned out. I just did 1/4 inch inside every single square, and wherever I could, I did a long stitch. And I did the same thing here. Now around the hexagon flower, I actually just went kind of 1/8 inch away. That way I still had room for the 1/4 inch seam there. And that's really all I did with the hexagon flower and just the straight stitching. Now I want to show you something about this pillow back. You might have seen it before if you watched my small projects video, but I was making this pillow with strike-offs and I didn't have any pieces that were big enough for a big pillow backing. And so I used charm squares, and I did 8 charm squares for the bottom and 4 charm squares for the top, and I really love it, and I think I'll actually do this again on a pillow back. I just thought it made it really fun. And I did put a zipper here, and we can also link the pillow form that I used that I really like. It's nice and firm. But we do have a video where I show you how to make this type of a pillow back. And we also, I believe, have a video for an envelope style pillow back. So you don't have to put a zipper in if you don't want to, but it's just a fun little option if you want to do it. And so anyway, that is how you make either the table mat or the pillow with just one mini charm pack. One note, there is not a template in the pattern for the hexagons. And so you will need to purchase, if you're going to do the hexagon flower, 1 inch hexagon papers. So the sides are all measure 1 inch. And sometimes you can find a free download to make these and print them off cardstock. But I like to get them from paperpieces.com, and we'll have a link in the description below for finding these little papers if you want to do that. And I think that's all. Okay, so that's it for the tutorial for this table mat and or pillow. with a mini charm pack is all you need and a little bit of extra fabric. We will have a link to where you can go to get the pattern in the description below. And as always, if you enjoyed today's video, please share it with a friend. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and hit the like button. Thanks so much for stopping by.